This is from Justin to Kane, a podcast where Mike Robertson and Bob LaRue watch one critically acclaimed film and one terrible film and talk about how they are the same.
Hey everybody, welcome to From Justin to Kane, the podcast with Mike and Bob, where we watch a movie that's good and a movie that's bad and we talk about how they're the same. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm Mike.
And I'm Bob. This week was it a doozy, Mike?
You say it's a doozy every time.
Shut up. Yeah, I do. You're right.
Was it a doozy? I guess, is a question for you because you're the doozy meister.
I am the doozy meister. I would say it's not a doozy, but the bad film was terrible, and I fell asleep during it. And then I woke up, and I missed a chunk, but I've seen the IP it's based on before, so I could fill in the blanks.
That's right. Yeah, same. I actually kind of fell asleep a little bit too.
But it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I mean, no, but it also wasn't good. Period. So
yeah. Well, okay. So the bad film this week is Tom and Jerry, semicolon, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is a wild.
It's not a semicolon.
What is it?
It's a colon.
Just a colon?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a colon? Sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a semicolon because they're of equal value.
Well,
the two IPs are equal and they smushed them together. But
yeah, they could be independent clauses for sure. Tom and Jerry and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but also.
But I guess it's Tom and Jerry, like an explanation. It's actually Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is whatever.
It's a mess of a title, is your point, though.
Yeah, and it doesn't roll off the tongue. I believe grammatically, it's not the cleanest thing I've ever seen.
No. And what is the good movie for this week?
To the chagrin of Mike, it's Point Break.
What,
1991's Point Break. You didn't want to do this movie.
I totally did. I've never seen it.
Did you? Okay. Well, you seemed like you weren't into it when I suggested it, but I had just seen it, and I gave it 5 stars on my Letterboxd because I fucking love it.
I gave it 4 stars.
That's pretty good for a Mike Robertson review. That's about as good as it gets.
I gave Dumb and Dumber 5. So
we all have our vices, I guess.
Yeah, we all have
Mine's Keanu Reeves, and you, it's Jim Carrey.
I mean, that's probably true, actually. That's probably a very accurate statement. So
I do love me some Keanu. I just watched the new Bill and Ted, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Was it good?
It's definitely the most vanilla film of all of them, but it's also a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to get what you're going to get when they wait 30 years to reboot a franchise or to do a sequel. It's always going to be just like, oh, remember this character you liked who had a lot of energy? Now they don't have any energy and they have to do something still.
It also felt like Keanu Reeves has become a better actor and he had to like unlearn that to play this character again because Bill and Ted was one of his first films. And he's terrible in the first 2, but in a charming way. And then, I mean, he's also terrible in Point Break. Like he's a bad actor, traditionally speaking.
Yeah, but what is he good in, though? What's he a good actor in?
Great question, actually. Let me think. I guess not the Matrix trilogy. He's not really very good. Speed was like a year after this film, and he's like pretty wooden. The Day the Earth Stood Still, he's pretty wooden. Constantine, he's pretty wooden. Maybe he was never a good actor. Shit.
Yeah. Devil's Advocate?
I love him, though. Oh, yeah, Devil's Advocate. Was he good in that? I've never seen it.
No, he wasn't.
Wow.
But
okay.
Pacino was in it.
You heard it here first.
And Pacino was in it.
And
he was doing his classic Pacino thing, so.
Yeah. He was trying to win another Oscar for playing the exact same character as the blind Marine from Scent of a Woman.
Yeah, but this time as the devil.
Whoa. Okay. Well, fuck it. Let's get into these, into the context of these films. So yes, Tom and Jerry, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and Point Break.
Yes.
Let's talk about Tom and Jerry first.
Sure. Yeah. So for people who don't have context, this is a animated movie, direct to digital video, whatever you call it now, direct to VOD, and it is a movie where inexplicably they remake Charlie and the Chocolate Factory they do an earnest remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and then Tom and Jerry are present in the film for some reason, and that is the movie. So just imagine Charlie and the Chocolate Factory animated with just the crudest, ugliest animation style, and then Tom and Jerry occasionally pop in and like smack each other with a board with a nail in it or something.
I like the animation style. It's really old school.
I thought the human characters were just strange. They're hard to look at. The they all kind of had this like weird smug ugliness to them.
I love the Candyman song.
The half-lidded eyes.
Yeah,
but while they're smiling, it's like something about that is unsettling. And every
I wish there
character
was
looks
like a
that.
filter we could photograph ourselves, and it would like translate our faces into that animation style, and like turn us both into Charlie.
I mean,
wouldn't that be fun?
That would be fun. I bet that filter probably exists. But also, maybe I resent it because I constantly exist in a half-lidded state, like my eyes are always half open, like Garfield.
That's so funny.
I hate Mondays.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? You really do. You never stop talking about it. You talk about it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Ooh, I'm so hungry for some lasagna too.
I bet you are.
You're the normal. You're the normal of this outfit. You're the young one that everybody likes, and I'm the like lazy Monday hating half-lidded eye.
You're the one with all the charm though, the like antagonistic charm.
Yeah, I have antagonistic charm and a maximum merchandising potential.
Exactly, and I got nothing. Say I have no ancillary sales to live off of like you do.
Yeah, I know. That's what's sad.
Just a real bizarre thing to say. Anyways, let's keep talking about Tom and Jerry, Willy Wonka, and the Chocolate Factory.
There's not a lot to say besides it seems like a pure cash grab. So
yeah, cash cow, one might say.
Who knows? I
don't know what that phrase is for. Never mind. I
couldn't find any information really about this particular movie, aside from negative reviews. So a lot of people were just kind of like, why does this exist? But they were not aware of the history of Tom and Jerry, which I will briefly go into. So anyways, this movie was produced by Warner Brothers Animation and Turner Entertainment Company, and it contains intellectual property from Hanna-Barbera, that being Tom and Jerry, and also Droopy Dog for some reason, who I don't remember him ever appearing in other Tom and Jerry cartoons, but I'm not a Tom and Jerry fan, as I'm sure you could say that about pretty much everybody in the world. Nobody really likes Tom and Jerry.
Why do they keep making it though?
I have a theory that because they are kind of silent characters who don't really speak, there's a big market in non-English speaking countries. So I feel like Tom and Jerry has kind of worn out their welcome 50 or 60 years ago in America and Canada. Right. And they just are around, and then they just keep making these things so they can do foreign sales. That's my theory.
That's a hot take. I like it. That's a hot half-lidded take.
Yes. Thank you. So this was one of many Tom and Jerry direct-to-video films that Warner Brothers Animation has produced. And Tom and Jerry, if you do not know, is a cartoon cat and mouse duo. They started as short films created by Hanna-Barbera, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera is their names. And they kind of started in 1940. And so they've been around for, what is that? 40?
Since the 40s?
Since 1940. So they've been around for almost 80 years.
80, actually 81 years.
Oh my God.
Almost 100 years old.
Wow. Oh my God. Yeah, that explains why they feel it relevant, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they've literally not aged. Like, you could probably show this film to a crowd in the 40s and they would just assume that it's like the new release that came out that year, you know? It felt old. It was like watching a Laurel and Hardy thing, but shitty, you know?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I don't care enough about Tom and Jerry to like really do a deep dive on them, but
I don't want you to either.
yeah, one thing I did find out was that Tom, his original name was Jasper.
What? Jasper and Jerry?
Yeah, but then they named him Tom because he's a tomcat.
So it also has a better ring to it.
It does have a better ring. Jasper and Jerry, or Jerry and Jasper. And so they're like a mouse and cat who are friends, but also enemies. Like they don't have anybody else in their lives. They're like super lonely. They just have their best friend, which is a cat and mouse. They're also
just like you and me.
Yeah, exactly. You're Jerry for sure.
Oh, I knew you were gonna say that. Well, you're Jasper.
Thank you. Yeah, so they're always trying to kill each other / keep each other alive, and never more has that been more evident in Tom and Jerry probably than at the beginning of the movie we watched, where they're both starving and they need to eat, in that classic cartoon situation where you find the titular characters just starving within an inch of their life. They're just trying to find food so they can both eat, but then Tom is also trying to eat Jerry. And I assume Jerry is trying to murder Tom so that he can eat him later. I'm not sure whether he has that intention, so...
It's a bit hazy, isn't it? The motivation, character motivation in this piece is not well done.
Yeah, not well.
There's obviously no like dramaturgy behind the scenes to really just figure out the emotional arc of this film, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. And like there are allegiances that are created that don't make a lot of sense. Like Grandpa and Charlie just really like Tom and Jerry, but for no reason. Like Tom and Jerry didn't earn it. They just kind of show up.
They just show up, and then they're taken as a given that they're going to be in the life of these characters for the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
like, oh yeah,
which
Tom
is
and Jerry.
A huge assumption. Oh, another thing to do with, I guess I just want to say, this is a really good example of how sometimes when you're translating something from animation to live action or live action animation, it doesn't work. And I think a really good example is in the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or whatever the hell it's called. The old man dancing, like he gets out of bed for the first time in years and he has this whole dance number, and it's so charming and fun. But in the animated film, it is so boring to watch, and there's absolutely no charm, because you're watching an old man like do a shitty old dance is fun because it's like, oh, he's old. But an animated character can literally do anything, but you watch it do this really limited movement and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so boring. It was real hack stuff.
So the director of this movie was named Spike Brandt, and he seems to have been working with Warner Brothers Animation for a long time. He worked on Space Jam, the original, as an animation director, and he's working on the new Space Jam movie as an animation director. But he's directed a lot of these kind of weird straight-to-video movies. Like, that's his career, essentially. And I'll just read off a couple. So the first one he did was the last Tom and Jerry movie that existed while Tom and Jerry creators were alive, which was A Nutcracker Tale. And then after that, it started going kind of off the rails a little bit. Tom and Jerry Meet Sherlock Holmes, Tom and Jerry and the Wizard of Oz, Tom and Jerry Robin Hood and His Merry Mouse, Tom and Jerry The Lost Dragon, Tom and Jerry Spy Quest, Tom and Jerry Go Back to Oz, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He also made a movie called, he didn't direct it, but there was a Tom and Jerry movie that I wanted to point out called Fast and the Furry.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. I assume that's in reference to Fast and the Furious?
Yeah, so it kind of came out at the height of Fast and the Furious's original fame, I guess. I guess they kind of...
Like in the early 2000s?
Early 2000s, yeah. So Spike Brandt didn't direct that one, but he, yeah. But then also, Spike Brandt also worked on a bunch of other, like, Hanna-Barbera / Warner Brothers properties. Scooby-Doo and Kiss, Rock and Roll Mystery.
Wow.
The Flintstones and WWE Stone Age SmackDown.
This is like, you know, when you have like a random name generator and you just put in like your birthday and your eye color and then it just says a bunch of random bullshit. That's what this sounds like.
Exactly. I know.
They were just pulling IP out of a hat and they're like, I guess we're doing Flintstones with the WWE.
It's preposterous.
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo, The Sword and the Scoob. That one probably actually is probably relatively normal as far as things go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so he's kind of just done a lot of shilling with these character IPs on straight to video, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And was mostly, I guess, known for Space Jam and Animaniacs. And then just doing straight to video, crappy cartoons for the last 20 odd years.
Cool. You gotta pay the rent somehow, Mike.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's also the voice actor for Tom and Jerry, who don't really say anything.
They don't have voices.
Well, they kind of like make sounds a little bit, but they don't say words. They just kind of say,
Sounds like you could be the voice actor for Tom and Jerry, Jasper and Jerry.
They kind of blink more than they speak. You know, they go boing, 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 boing when they're surprised, you know?
Yeah, that was really good.
Thank you. Boing, boing, boing,
Man,
boing,
I
boing,
think
boing.
you should get an agent because this is maybe the new gig for you.
Thank you.
Some VO, but like not talking, just like onomatopoeia.
Well, I will then. Thank you. I need the encouragement.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Anything else about this wonderful film?
Well, I do want to kind of delve a little bit into Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as an IP, not really going too far into depth, but yeah. One thing that really kind of fascinated me about this particular movie was that, first of all, Roald Dahl hated the movie adaptation, like the one with Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
He thought it kind of went against the point of the book.
Which is what? I've never read the book.
I think it's been kind of described as like a kid's book, but it's also like a brutal depiction of capitalism. It's like almost dystopic.
Mm-hmm.
But the original movie and this movie especially kind of glaze over that aspect of it and kind of celebrate the candy more than anything.
Right.
Whereas I think the Roald Dahl book was more just like capitalism sucks, and this is what the world will be like when we are living in a capitalist nightmare in the future. So the original film kind of blandified that a little bit. I'm not sure if blandify is a word. And then this movie even further just kind of forgets what the original book was even about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the funny thing about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory as a property is that people have forgotten that it's kind of anti-capitalist. That, you know, like the Oompa Loompas are not supposed to be happy.
I love the scene where it's like they work and Wonka provides them housing. It's like, that's not a fair trade. What a fascinating thing to just like glaze over.
Yeah, I know.
But they're also morally righteous. Like, did you listen to the lyrics?
Yeah, they are morally righteous, yeah.
So what's up with that? They're like indentured slaves, morally righteous.
Well, they bought into the lies of capitalism.
Right. Yeah.
And in the book, Willy Wonka is kind of a greedy capitalist. In the original movie, they kind of just treat him as he's kind of just a bit of a dick.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not really portrayed in this kind of greedy capitalist way. I think that's the kind of confusing part. They wanted it to be a kid's movie. So that's probably a hard balance to make where you have this guy who's supposed to be the titular character, who is, supposed to be a chocolate factory guy who everybody wants to meet. And then when they finally meet him, he's almost evil.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, made even more confusing by this Tom and Jerry movie because it's like he's not a dick in this movie, really. He's just kind of a little bit sarcastic. So he's been even more cleaned down.
Mm-hmm.
I did find this quote from the book. It says, "The kids who are going to find the golden tickets are the one who can afford to buy bars of chocolate every day. Our Charlie only gets one a year. There isn't a hope." So kind of just spells out how sad Charlie's life is because he's poor and how he's never going to get a leg up because of just that's capitalism, baby. So
yeah.
But you wouldn't know that from watching Tom and Jerry go to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Because it's like every time any sort of interesting idea is explored, it cuts to Tom and Jerry, who are, I don't know, like smacking each other with a hammer or turning into a fence or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting balance, this movie, of trying to do a super faithful remake of the original movie, not the book.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while cut to this cat and mouse who need to kill each other for some reason, even though they're trying to help these other people. And then they just kind of do not even really interesting physical comedy.
Well, yeah, the physical aspect, which is like the only thing they can do and the only thing to really sell them as characters, is so charmless.
I know. It's just like, get it over with. Just like, yeah, we get it. You have to hit each other
with
a bunch
hammers
of times
and stuff. And and like, get put through walls and it's the cutout of your body instead of just a whole, all those classic animation bits. But yeah, charmless.
It
just
serves no purpose.
Absolutely charmless.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a bummer.
But I guess it entertains kids, and kids don't question things. So that's...
Well, kids are stupid, so makes sense.
When I was doing some research on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, a lot of people think it's capitalist propaganda. That's how far the message has been kind of watered down. Yeah.
Diluted, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're just talking about the movie, but I saw a bunch of people saying it's brutal depiction of capitalism, and then another thing saying this is capitalist propaganda. And I was like, well, which one is it?
Poor Roald Dahl just rolling over in his grave.
Well, yeah, exactly. His book has been so soiled by
bastardized.
It's been bastardized, yeah. So this is like not a terribly interesting film, but also it is because it's such a strange remake of a movie that doesn't need to be remade as an animated movie.
Yeah.
Like way too earnestly, and almost like there's no original idea in it. Except, what if we added a cat and mouse to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for some reason?
Well, it's funny too. I think I haven't verified this with runtimes, but in a way they've taken two movies and smushed them together.
Yeah.
But the runtime is so short, it's probably shorter than the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, I know. And they somehow managed to keep songs in there, and they also managed to add a bunch of side plots.
Cat stuff. Yeah, it's weird, man. It's super weird.
If anything, it's a more efficient edit of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I guess.
But with extra sort of irrelevant stuff.
Yeah. They added that Slugworth character, I think. Was he in the original?
He was, yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I was like, I don't remember this character at all. And
No, Slugworth, he looks like a real fucking weirdo in the 70s one. Like, it's kind of scary. But yeah, okay. He's in it, and he's secretly Willy Wonka's employee.
And what's
he's
the point
trying to
of
fool
that?
the kids. Well, it's a really what I've gleaned from it is that this is a morality tale testing these kids. So it's not a capitalist story because the kids are challenged to steal something and give it to the bad guy, and then Charlie doesn't, and that's what gets him to win the entire factory and the whole enterprise. Yeah. So it's him making a morally, proper choice, and then capitalism rewards him. So I guess in a way it is, but he does something inherently uncapitalistic to achieve this.
Yeah.
And then it's inherently uncapitalistic for Willy Wonka to give his entire enterprise over to Charlie. So there's a lot of contradictions.
Yeah.
And it seems like the main version of the film is just filled with contradictions, and it's not saying anything about anything.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And in the book, they talk about how there's the chocolate factory has giant smokestacks that are polluting the air and stuff. So, and then Willy Wonka is a greedy capitalist. So it's like an interesting thing. He still gives Charlie the factory at the end.
It's confusing. I think there's too much conflicting for it to really mean anything.
Well, you need to have a happy ending in a kid's book.
I guess, but you got to teach them sooner rather than later that,
Yeah.
You almost never win.
Yeah. So tell me about Point Break.
Okay. Point Break. Seminal classic. Remade in 2015 very unsuccessful. Just want to start off.
Seminal?
I think it's a seminal classic.
Well, they were young, dumb, and full of cum, so...
Patrick Swayze wasn't that young when this movie came out.
I don't know, was he?
No, I don't think so. I can't verify that. I mean, I could. I'm just not going to.
He looked younger.
But I can verify he was full of cum.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he looked younger in this movie than he did in Dirty Dancing.
He's what?
He looked younger in this movie than he did in Dirty Dancing.
But Dirty Dancing was made like way before.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so strange. Well, he got cool hair and he worked out a bunch and, worked on, having the tight surfer bod and all that jazz. Anyways, this came out in 1991. It was it took a while to make. Like in the mid 80s, it was going to be made. and then it fell through. Obviously, it was kind of like in production hell for a long time. And then eventually, so James Cameron became a producer on the project, and then he got Catherine Bigelow attached as director.
Mm-hmm.
They were married at the time.
They sure were.
They divorced the year this film came out, which is interesting. And then they did, it must have been a very amicable one, because then Stranger Days was done, and James Cameron wrote it, and Catherine Bigelow directed it in 1995. So obviously they like maintained some sort of relationship, which is cool.
That is cool. I'm glad those divorcees made it work.
Yeah, and they're very successful as a result. So there's only one person credited as a writer, but W. Peter Liff, I believe, is the writer. But Rick King, I think, came up with the story. And then the last final draft, the one that actually went to picture, was actually written by Catherine Bigelow and James Cameron.
Oh, wow.
Because apparently it just didn't really make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it barely made sense in its final form.
Yeah. Starring Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. Little fun fact, Anthony Kiedis is in this film.
I noticed, yeah.
He's one of the three guys who kicks the shit out of Keanu Reeves. They're like the tough guys, and then they do the whole shootout and stuff in the house later on. So that's kind of interesting. I tried to get information on this, and it's really fuzzy, and there's a lot of contradictions online about how much involvement Patrick Swayze had in the skydiving parts. So supposedly he did a bunch of the skydives in the film, but also supposedly he did none of them except for one, the scene where he says, like, I'll be seeing you or whatever, and then he jumps out of the plane. Yeah. And the camera just like sees him fall. That was done for real. But yeah, it's really, there's so many conflicting sort of articles and stuff that basically equals zero. And it's like, I don't know which way this went. But a fun anecdote. So Gary Busey's in this film. We love Gary Busey.
Big fan. Friend of the pod.
Big fan. Yeah. He was terrified to go skydiving. Never wanted to do it. And then eventually Patrick Swayze persuaded him. And one day after they wrapped, he took him. And they had a great time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because his character doesn't skydive. I'm like, what does this mean?
No. Just like behind the scenes, like Patrick Swayze pressured him into doing it, and then he loved it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Patrick Swayze signed like a contract saying that he wouldn't skydive during the production of the film for insurance reasons, because leading up to the film, he was skydiving like every day. He was a major like thrill seeker. So he signed this document, but then apparently he was skydiving like after they wrapped, and he took like Gary Busey, and then he did the one jump himself. But he made a deal. He only signed the document because they let him do one jump for real in the film, which you see when he jumps out.
Right.
Yeah, the famous foot chase was really hard to do. They're literally running as fast as they could, and I think the run is like the chase is like 5 or 6 minutes. Like it's wild, really long. They had to do it with a thing called a pogo cam, which isn't a steady cam. It's like basically the first ever gimbal, and it was an 18-pound 35mm camera, and it was basically stripped down and then it was put on this thing that was kind of like a gimbal. And there was no way to see what was in the shot, so they built like a little wire frame on the top of the camera that the operator could see through that would rough in what the shot was. And he basically just flew blind because he was running at full pace with an 18-pound camera attached to him.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it's amazing that so much of it is in frame and in focus. Like it's just like pretty like impressive, to be honest with you, because this was like they filmed this in 1990. Like the technology was archaic, and I think what they achieved is really astounding. Yeah. Oh, I guess I should get into the history of surfing.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, so Cowabunga, exactly. So this is all from one website. I didn't verify this with another website. Shoot me, okay? But so the first time it was ever witnessed and documented was in 1767 on a European ship. They saw people in Tahiti surfing. Okay, so that's the first time documented, but there's research suggesting that like centuries before, ancient Polynesian cultures were surfing, and basically like surfing was a test to see like who could be like chief or like who would be like in government, and the best surfers would have the most sort of political power within those like societies, which is kind of interesting. There's also like just a major history of surfing in Hawaii, and it's like it's an integral part of the culture and the lifestyle. Yeah, and it was also used as a way to, like garner power or like test people to see what their ability was. And then it moved to the United States. A guy named James Matthias Jordan Jr. brought it to the East Coast. And he learned it from the ancient ways of the Polynesians, but I don't really know what that means. Obviously, like he probably went to Hawaii or something and met somebody who taught him about it. But anyways, this was done in 1912, so pretty early on in the 20th century. He rode a surfboard in 1912, and this happened at Virginia Beach. And since then, it's become this like major craze. And Virginia Beach is like a classic surfing spot. And then it caught big in the West Coast as well. And then obviously like 3 major spots are Hawaii, Australia, and then California, the coast of California. That's where a lot of stuff happens. And then in the 1950s is really like when it took hold in America and became a major sport. And it's been growing ever since. It's like a massive, and there's like businesses that have been created, not dissimilar to like, well, skateboarding came out of surfing. But yeah, it's been around for centuries, but it kind of entered the American mainstream in the 20th century. So it's actually a pretty young sport in terms of how common it is to see now.
Well, that's not too different from Tom and Jerry. They kind of gained popularity around the middle of the 20th century, right? But cats and mice have been around for centuries before. Yeah. Yeah,
and their animosity has been well documented for centuries.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's maybe the first similarity, Mike.
Thank you.
Nice.
I do good work.
And then like out of surfing, there's been like surf music and like beach culture. Certain hairdos. There's a lot of like subculture stuff that has come out of surfing and is with us still to this day. And words like cowabunga and stuff, like Mike said earlier, that's all a product of this cool subculture.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to Bob's TED Talk.
Yeah, could you imagine that was a TED Talk? They'd be like, what's the point? And I'm like, I don't know. You tell me.
Surfing.
Just go ride some waves.
Yeah, what's the point? It's all about the ride, man.
And yeah, so this film is really fascinating because it's a terrible, like, on paper, it's a horrific idea for a film.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Like, it's so fucking stupid. It's like, wait, so these bank robbers are surfers and they get investigated and chased by the FBI. Like, that's a stupid premise.
Is this based on a true story, though? Usually stuff like this is.
It's not.
Okay.
The producer, the guy who came up with the story, was literally sitting on a beach and he saw people surfing and he's like, it'd be really cool if like they were criminals. That's literally the conceit of the film. Like, he was just sitting on a beach in Malibu and then he had the idea. This was in the early 80s, I think, when he had the idea. I forget the guy's name. But yeah, it was nothing more profound than like a whim of the thought while he was sitting on a beach, and then it became Point Break.
Those are the best ideas. Sometimes.
They certainly can be. But yeah, I love like the sort of absurdity of this whole concept was done as well as it could have been done, I think.
I think that was similar to how Tom and Jerry Charlie and the Chocolate Factory came about, where the director was watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and was like, what if Tom and Jerry were in this movie?
But because they did so many Tom and Jerry films, Jasper and Jerry films that were just smushed with other films, surely it was just a list of like children's classics. Because
they came out with a Tom and Jerry movie like this last month with Colin Jost.
Yeah, it's like a theatrical VOD and it's live action.
Yeah. It's one of those things where cartoons and humans are together at last. And yeah, it's always more focused on the humans for some reason. Even though that's not why people want to watch it. And like, nobody wants to watch Sonic the Hedgehog because they want to see James Marsden do things.
No, you want to see how fast Sonic is. I'm really glad for once you brought up Sonic the Hedgehog. Wow, you're learning.
I had to thwart you.
I'll find a way.
Yeah, anyway, I read in the Hollywood Reporter that they were going to be making Tom and Jerry: Point Break.
Oh, really? That'd be awesome. So they would be surfing.
Yeah, they go
I would
surfing.
watch that.
Jerry surfs on Tom's dead corpse.
Well, I'd watch that. That'd be legendary.
So did you find these movies to be very the same?
Like, yes and no. Like, kind of. I had to do some stretching.
This was one of the few times when I, for some reason, only few times when I am like, what is life? Why am I doing this?
Sitting through this film was particularly painful, I thought. I literally fell asleep.
Yeah, thank goodness. Sleep took hold. Your brain was like, don't worry, I got you, buddy.
Yeah, the narcolepsy just kicked in. I fell asleep and I woke up. I missed a decent chunk of this film, Mike, but I woke up and Willy Wonka's at his desk and he's yelling at Charlie for drinking the bubbly drink and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then Charlie puts the never-ending gobstopper on the desk. That's when I woke up. And I fell asleep right after the fizzy pop was consumed. So I think I missed probably 35% of the film.
But you've seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the original.
I have. Yeah. I've seen it many times on VHS.
And you've seen Tom and Jerry just pointlessly engage in conflict?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
well,
so I could fill in the blanks.
You didn't miss anything, I don't think.
I did feel guilty, but not guilty enough to rewind.
So, yeah, do you got any similarities?
Nope, not one.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Well, that's the pod.
So I think both films really represent senseless, dangerous thrill seeking. Okay,
nice.
So
good.
You've got the surfers. They rob banks. They surf. They skydive. They're very physical. They're very in tune with their bodies, and they do a lot of things that the average person wouldn't want to do. And I think that's true of Tom and Jerry too. You see them do a lot of acrobatics, dangerous activities. And I think your conventional cat and mouse wouldn't want to partake in these activities because of the inherent risk. How's that?
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, they're I would say Tom and Jerry are like surfers and skydivers.
And there's also just a heavy use of like flowing liquids in both films. Like,
yeah,
so many shots of the ocean and waves. And there's so much liquid chocolate in this movie. There's lots of like shots of the ocean and waves and water. And there's so many shots, like the whole opening credit sequence is just liquid chocolate.
Recorded on this Easter Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Did you do an egg hunt this morning?
No, but we got
because you're a grown-ass man.
Yeah, we got some chocolates, though.
Oh,
maybe
good
I'll
for
hide
you.
them.
Have you had any yet? Are you treating yourself?
Not yet. But
okay.
Yeah, we were just recording this on Easter Sunday, the day that Jesus came back to give everybody chocolate. So,
yeah.
Both films revolve around people who are contaminated by factories. So the surfers, they track them down because they get a hair sample and they're like, there's a specific kind of chemical compound on the hair.
Yeah, because it's poured into the ocean.
Yeah, it's poured into the ocean by a giant factory. There's like a beach right beside like a giant cartoonish factory in the background. So, and then in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, obviously children are contaminated by the candy. The kid gets sucked into the pipe.
Yeah. But also, I think to second what you're saying, if you were to do an analysis of Tom and Jerry after they had like a big bath post visit to the factory, you would find samples of chocolate in their fur.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So like, because that shit doesn't get out after one wash. You really got to go to town. So I think both films would sort of have your characters, if you analyze their hair, there'd be sort of bizarre chemicals attached to them.
That was a strange similarity. I was like, how is this possible that there's a factory involving that contaminates the bodies of people?
Well, it's like the more further removed the films are from each other, the more niche the similarities become. Yeah. It's like a weird paradox.
Well, one huge similarity, I'll say this. Tom and Jerry are friends and yet enemies. Same could be said about Johnny Utah and Bodie.
100%. I think like there's a shared character dynamic in both films. Both films feature drawn out aerial interactions with characters. So you have the crazy skydiving business between Bodie and whatever Keanu Reeves' character's name is.
Johnny Utah.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Utah. Also, terrible fucking character name, like a comic book character. But anyways, yeah, Bodhi and Johnny Utah. And then you have Grandpa and Charlie floating up in that with the fizzy pop drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's like aerobatics, like they do flips, and they also are elated to be flying or falling, depending on your perspective.
And the skydivers were probably burping. They were sucking up a lot of air and burping it out.
Definitely. Yeah, I'd say that's for sure true. And both films depicted like impossible to do things. Like you can't talk and you can't fall for that long when you're skydiving.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't drink a gas. You can't like drink a gas and have it lift you. It's physically impossible. Yeah, anyway, it's just kind of interesting. I have a lot of feelings about Willy Wonka and the realities of his product. Like, it would be really gross to eat chewing gum that tasted like mashed potatoes.
I know. Yeah.
That would be fucking disgusting. Like, no one wants that.
Well, the person the person whose entire identity revolves around gum does.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I didn't think about it like that, Mike.
So, speaking of, in Point Break, the characters were young, dumb, and full of cum. And in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the characters were young, dumb, and full of gum.
Gum. Oh my God, Mike. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love that.
I mean, technically, Tom and Jerry are both boys, so they are also young, dumb, and etc.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I guess they are both males, aren't they?
And one would assume that they're not fixed.
No, because they're street animals.
They're street animals, that's right.
So they're not fixed, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Both films show characters with hidden intentions until the very end. So they're pretending to be something or do something for an ulterior motive. So obviously Johnny Utah is pretending to be a surfer, and he's undercover. And the same is true of what's the bad guy's name in Willy Wonka?
Slugsworth?
Slugsworth, yeah, Mr. Slugsworth is also hiding something.
And they're both working for the man.
They are both working for the man, yeah. And the man is kind of mean. Like, Willy Wonka's kind of mean, and the character played by John C. McGinley, Ben Harp, the head of the FBI of that department, is super mean. Like, he's just so rude. That
guy, he's like a wild actor he always kind of plays that character.
He's had a great career.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, this Scrubs.
Yeah.
I knew him best from Office Space.
Oh, really?
He's the manager guy who is talking to the character whose name is Michael Bolton. And he's like, Michael Bolton, I celebrate the man's entire catalog. I quote that line all the time, but mostly just talking about Weird Al.
Oh, right. Yeah, you would.
In both movies, there's a character whose knee gets like screwed up royally. So Johnny Utah hurts his knee in a football injury, and Tom kind of gets his legs kind of stretched at one point.
Among other injuries.
Among other injuries, yeah, to the leg. But at one point, he gets his legs stretched, and then his legs are like longed for a good couple minutes.
Both films feature like comical injuries and fights, like cartoonish.
A lot of violence.
So Tom and Jerry, like, obviously cartoonishly fighting. They're cartoon animals. They can stretch and bend and do stuff. But you see Johnny Utah do some pretty stupid shit in fights. Like the scene where his head is going to get shoved into a lawnmower. Mm-hmm. Like an open-face lawnmower, which I've never seen.
Yeah.
And that was like cartoonish. I'm like, what a stupid way to kill somebody. Like trying to shove their head into a lawnmower.
Similar scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, actually.
Mm-hmm.
When they drink the lifty pop and they're going to get chopped up in the blades at the top.
Yes.
They almost have right. Both characters in both movies kind of have giant blades spinning by their face.
Yeah.
And they're worried about dying.
And then they don't. Crisis is averted. So yeah, that's a good one.
I would say that the golden ticket is very similar to the perfect wave. Like there's a specific kind of magical experience that the characters are seeking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's all that one is. That's all that one is. And like I also the Chocolate Factory and surfing are described as magical in both movies.
That's true, aren't they?
So yeah, kind of a parallel there. And both adjacent to factories once again. So magical experiences beside factories or in factories, I guess, more specifically to one of them.
Both films feature like a similar physicality reminiscent of a baby taking its first steps. Okay.
Okay.
You've got the old man getting out of bed for the first time, presumably in a decade or more. And he's very whack with his balance. He doesn't have the strength he used to have. And it's a real struggle. But then he miraculously just is fine. Like he learns at an unnaturally quick pace.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of through the sort of the magic of movie making. Time is, stretched or compressed. And that's true of seeing Keanu Reeves step on his board for the first time, and then like maybe 4 minutes later, he's a really good surfer.
I mean, he is a good surfer after one day of surfing.
Yeah, which is not how surfing works.
Have you surfed?
No, I haven't.
I did once. I spent one day surfing.
And you were pretty fucking gnarly by the end?
It took me 4 minutes to get up and do some sweet tube grinds. I assume they're called. No, but it was like and I was in Santa Monica, I think.
Yeah.
Whatever beach they do a lot of surfing. Rented a surfboard for a day because I wanted to try it, and I got up on the board twice, and I never once kind of like rode a wave. And then my skin turned blue from being cold.
That all sounds pretty accurate. Did you take lessons, or did you just go?
I took lessons on YouTube. I went on YouTube and I just watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos and was like, this will do me. And like, they were actually very helpful. Like a lot of the stuff that was in Point Break was in those YouTube videos. So I was like, when I was watching Point Break, as an expert, I was like, yeah, this is accurate. This is accurate. So.
Yeah, well, you've lived that experience. It seems like one of those things that you should really have somebody there in real time helping you.
Yeah.
Because it's so physical and it's so unnatural.
And you also have to have muscles, which I didn't have at the time, nor do I have now.
Right.
But yeah, you got to have core strength for sure.
Yeah.
You have to be able to get up very quickly.
Like really quickly, yeah.
Very quickly,
and that film,
on a slippery thing. That. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because like when you skateboard, you have like grip tape and there's a lot of friction helping you. But when you're surfing, it's like your feet are bare on a curved, totally smooth surface. And you have to like steer the board somehow with your feet not really stuck to the board.
But it somehow works because of the miracle of science. Like inertia, you're like, you and the board are one object somehow.
But it's nutty too because there's like a rudder in the back, which would make it harder to move the board.
Yeah, I know.
Am I wrong?
You are not wrong. It's a twisted activity for sure. It's not God's way.
Yeah. People love it. And it's, it kills people, but they're chasing after that rush, man.
Yeah, it's all about the rush.
Have you ever gone skydiving?
No. For
the
longest time I wanted to, but then I never put the effort in.
Yeah, I still want to. I just haven't gotten around to doing it.
Yeah, maybe we should do it one day. We should maybe record a pod live from the skydive.
Yeah,
we'll just be skydiving and just do our pod as we're falling. And it's like movie.
So Mythbusters, back when Mythbusters was a thing.
It's not a thing?
I assume not. I don't know. I haven't had cable in several years, so I'm not sure. But I'd assume it's not on because Adam Savage is not involved.
Yeah, I think Fool Us with Penn and Teller has kind of taken back the throne of just like quirky duo doing stuff.
Right. That's a really good description.
They're doing stuff. Well, I'm not wrong.
No, you're right. But they like obviously they do a lot of like movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they verified you can't fall for the amount of time that they fell in the film.
Really?
There just isn't enough. Yeah, like from a normal jumping altitude, it's like really short.
Oh, okay.
Like it's like 30 seconds and you're on the ground. Like it's really, really short. And then the other thing is you cannot speak because it's so loud. It's deafeningly loud. And they like cover your ears and stuff when you fall because you can damage your ears because the wind is blowing so fast. But they verified you could, by making your body more aerodynamic, catch up with somebody who is like falling flat and you fall like straight up and down because you'd end up going way faster than them. So you can like meet up with somebody.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I will say we're reaching, because of my little nap, we're reaching near the end of my list. How's your list looking?
I got a couple more.
Okay, good. I don't know if this is a good one, but both films sort of have a very clear test that the protagonist has to endure. So Bodhi,
yeah, right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
so
there's tests.
Bodhi tests Johnny Utah in the skydiving bit, right? And then Wonka tests Charlie. And
No,
really,
that's right.
it's like a human, like are you really the solid person you think you are kind of test. And they both pass with flying colors.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Literally falling colors in terms of Point Break.
In both movies, characters assault a security guard.
Oh my God, you're right. You're right.
In Point Blank, that cop and the security guard team up, just try and stop them.
Mm-hmm.
Try and stop the bank robber. And then there's a dog who inexplicably is one of the few animal characters who can speak in full English. And he's a security guard, and he's repeatedly assaulted by Tom and Jerry.
That's
one time
true.
even like he gets crushed by a thing on a conveyor belt that turns him into a series of chocolate bars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he survives it somehow.
Also, like both films involve heists.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Tom and Jerry steal chocolate bars multiple times.
Yes, because they're hungry and they're broke.
Also, on that note, the surfers in Point Break also steal from the bank because they have that little monologue that they do about disrupting the institutions.
Yes.
So they're in both movies, like the characters are trying to disrupt capitalism, I guess.
Well, I would go a step further, Mike, and say both films do a very clumsy job of attacking capitalism.
Yeah.
Like they're not super articulate and they're not concise. You're kind of like I feel like there's a presence of a morale question in this film, but I don't really know what it is. Except that you got to ride that wave, bro.
Yeah.
Both films do a cool sort of exploration of a subculture / just a straight up culture. So the subculture being surfing. Okay.
Right.
And I would even go as far as to say FBI culture, which sounds and seems, according to this non-realistic film, very abusive and toxic as a workplace.
Yeah. Can you punch your superior in the FBI and get away with it?
You'd have to ask an FBI agent. Fuck,
it seems like there's no rules within the FBI. Like you can punch your superior, you can just murder people.
Yeah. They're also not, I guess, unionized because all of the surfing lessons were unpaid.
Yeah.
For Johnny Utah's, like that was all pro bono work. So I don't know, like the payment plan. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the compensation's like in the FBI, especially in the early '90s, but doesn't seem great.
Oh, I wouldn't think it was great. Yeah.
So anyway, surfing, FBI explored, and then you have the culture of the Oompa Loompas kind of explored, perplexingly in Tom and Jerry, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, whatever the fuck it is.
Right.
And, that little mouse, Oompa Loompa.
Tuffy.
Yes. He explains...
Wait, Tuffy's a boy?
Oh, I don't know. I just really gendered that character for no reason. I don't know. Is Tuffy a boy? I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
No, let's get to the bottom of this.
Well, while you're researching, I'll also bring up that there's like a 3-character triad in both films. You got Tom, Jerry, and Tuffy.
It is, and it's a female actor portraying Tuffy, so you're right, yeah. So let's assume.
Well, but also female voice actors a lot of the time will voice little boys.
That's true.
The actor who does Tuffy's voice also voices some of the Rugrats.
Yeah, that's right. Also, the actor who plays Tuffy, her name's Kath Soucie, prolific career.
Oh, yeah, she's like
and
iconic.
Only in almost primarily in animation.
Some people can like make it their whole thing.
Yeah, which is super cool. Like, what a great way to make a living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's a big get for this movie, actually.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, actually. That's kind of interesting. But anyway, so Tuffy is perplexing because Tuffy's a mouse and an Oompa Loompa,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of fascinating. But anyways, Tuffy is the sort of I guess
Just listen. Wait, Bob, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself.
What?
You just said the sentence, Tuffy's a mouse and an Oompa Loompa with like complete seriousness.
Well, we're talking about a serious film, Mike.
Oh, I know. It just kind of dawned on me how dumb all of this is.
and that we are recording it and asking people to listen to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
Tuffy's a mouse and an Oompa Loompa.
And like, what are the implications of that? But Tuffy kind of takes us on this journey, explaining very briefly the sort of the genesis of how the Oompa Loompas ended up in the employ of Sir Willy Wonka. And we kind of learn about that I'm not going to say subculture because it's just a straight up culture. Like the Oompa Loompas are obviously like a society of people, sort of morally righteous people with really cool hair, and they're very hardworking. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where that work ethic comes from, but it's certainly interesting to see. But Tuffy is too small and outcast from the Oompa Loompas, and not dissimilarly in the surf scene, it's really easy to become an outcast because you're not like real enough.
Yeah.
And Johnny Utah is not real. Johnny Utah and Tuffy are the same character, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah, I guess so. I was saying that Tuffy and Tyler were the same character, but that's not true at all. Just because it's like two boys and a girl.
Right.
But it doesn't really make a difference. It's kind of all interchangeable. It's all kind of interchangeable. It doesn't matter.
It's all irrelevant, really.
It's all kind of irrelevant. Anyway, next point, just to further drive home this is irrelevant. Both films have visible buttholes.
Yes. I'm glad you said it, not me.
Yeah, in Point Break, when when bank robber moons the camera, you can see the butthole actually
and Mike,
in the movie.
Did you pause the frame?
I didn't pause, but in the movie they rewind it and play it again just so you can see it.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that they got away with showing that butthole.
And with the president's face. Associated to it too. Yeah, like it is interesting. They got away with a lot in this film.
Yeah, and then in Tom and Jerry, you do see the butthole of Tom. Like you don't see like the actual you don't see the asterisk, but you do see the his tail goes up and you see his end area. So there is a butthole being shown, even if it's not drawn.
Yeah, his bedroom area.
His bedroom. That's why we want them. We need them to release the butthole cut of Tom and Jerry.
Yeah. Finally, somebody else said it, not just me. You're preaching to the choir, my man. You're preaching to the choir.
I know.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for that Sonic butthole cut.
That Sonic butthole human teeth cut?
Yeah. So both films feature really obnoxious friends, kind of in the periphery to the actual plot. So like in the surf culture, like Bodhi has a lot of friends who suck. They're really obnoxious and annoying.
Yeah.
And similarly, I think Tom and Jerry kind of are really irritating to watch as you're just trying to watch Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like, there's a weird, bizarre moment when you start watching the film and you're like, oh, I'm watching, like, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like, this is nice. And then Tom and Jerry are there, and they're just kind of in the background, and they're very obnoxious. They get into trouble. They cause trouble, and they hurt each other. And it's just like some of the surfer guys, like, give Johnny Utah a hard time and are really rude to him. And they're so obnoxious about riding the wave and the sort of spiritual angle, and they're very sort of righteous about it. And a second note is both films feature, like classic bleach blonde surfer hair. Charlie's got you could argue Charlie's got a surfer do.
He kind of does, yeah. He's got surfer vibes.
And then obviously, like, there's lots of surfers, and like Patrick Swayze's hair is awesome in Point Break.
Yeah,
I would say it's of legendary proportions.
Also, you're talking about obnoxious characters. Like all of the characters who win tickets to the Chocolate Factory, except for Charlie, are super obnoxious.
That's right. I didn't even realize. Yeah, that's an even better argument.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of obnoxious characters in the film.
That's true. That's true. Including Willy Wonka himself.
Yeah, exactly. And dare I call it a film?
What You know what, Mike? I was having this conversation and somebody was like, what is a feature film? Like, what makes a film a feature? It's obviously not runtime.
Well, isn't it? I thought that was what made it a feature.
Well, no, because there's TV
60,
episodes
60
that are...
or 70 minutes, isn't it? 75 minutes or 70 minutes plus?
But no, that's no longer become true because there are TV shows that can be like upwards of 2 hours an episode.
Yeah.
So... yeah, I don't know what the definition of feature film is anymore.
Well, then also if you go on
fuzzy.
Letterboxd, which is a movie website, people just log TV shows on there now. It's like, what are you guys even doing? Like,
you're such a purist.
What is this website even about anymore?
Get your Seinfeld and your Game of Thrones out of here, goddammit.
Well, no, they don't do Seinfeld, but they'll do what's like a big TV show?
Sopranos.
I don't know.
Breaking Bad. Game of Thrones. The Wire.
I think it's more a limited series, actually. They'll consider it a movie.
Oh. Like, I just watched The Investigation for HBO, and it's like, it felt like a movie. It's a 6-parter. They're hour an episode. It's great. So is Watchmen a movie? Because that's a limited series.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I would say that they would probably log it on Letterboxd, yeah. But like Twin Peaks, the very, very, very first episode is 90 minutes.
That's
it's
true.
Movie length. It feels like a movie.
It does feel like a movie, doesn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's just a little, yeah. I digress. That was a digression, but...
That was a digression. That was a nice digression, though.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what the definition anymore is, and I keep telling people, like, oh yeah, like this feature, that feature, and they're like, what is that? What's a feature? And then I was like, I guess it's something that would be part of theatrical release, but that's also no longer a thing. I watched Tenet on YouTube. So, like,
as it was meant to be seen.
Yeah. I watched it twice, though, which is how it's meant to be seen. So whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, what the fuck, man? I don't know. The definitions are all becoming very blurry, I think.
Yeah, Tom and Jerry, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is 80 minutes.
So it fits the time. I loved the runtime. I thought it was a good length. Probably could have cut 15 minutes out of it, but then it would be too short.
If they got rid of every time Tom and Jerry did anything, it would have been 60 minutes.
Probably less, actually.
Yeah, probably.
They really truncated the story of Willy Wonka a lot, which is astounding because they also hit all the beats. Like, I don't understand how they did it. It's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, it was a very efficient storytelling, you could say.
Yes.
More efficient than Point Break, because Point Break was 2 hours long, and
But it didn't feel 2 hours long.
No, it didn't. But they threw in a bunch of action scenes for no reason sometimes.
Well, and they were long action scenes.
Yeah.
But I thought, like, Point Break was like a mythological story. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and like, of that scale. And like, the ending with Swayze, like, riding that big wave and stuff. It's just like, oh, like, this is epic. I love it.
He dies surfing. That's what he wanted.
Exactly. And Johnny Utah let him. Because he knew, like, Johnny Utah changed. He was like a stickler, and he was by the book, and then by the end, he was spiritual, in tune with his body, and in tune with the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a beautiful arc, and a very understated arc.
If you think about it, at the end of both movies, they go to heaven.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's true.
Because they get in the glass elevator, and they go up to heaven for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they go? Why are they in that elevator anyway?
So the elevator is supposed to take you to anywhere in the factory, but then there's one button, and you can just fly.
Okay.
And that's true. That's in the movie, the original film.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But I don't know if it's in the book, the Roald Dahl book. I've never read it.
Well, there was a sequel to it, and I think it was Willy Wonka and the Glass Elevator.
Really?
I think so. Something like that. There's no way to know.
I thought this was a bit.
No.
It's a real sequel.
I would never make jokes. But if I was making jokes, who among us would know if I was? You know?
Ain't that the truth?
I have one more similarity. At one point in Point Break, Gary Busey sitting in a car laughing at comic strips.
Yeah.
And he's like really losing it, laughing at comic strips in a newspaper. And it was just kind of like represented a bygone era of comedy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess in the 90s, comic strips were still funny. Similarly, Tom and Jerry both are like relics that for whatever reason exist in this Willy Wonka animated movie.
And I think Tom and Jerry are of a bygone era.
They 100% are, yeah.
Yet are being watched in a modern lens, It's weird
For some reason.
for some reason.
I think it's 100% just entirely Warner Brothers. Like, well, we have this IP, and people know who these characters are. The end. That's as far as the thought process goes.
For a long time, I thought Ben and Jerry's ice cream and Tom and Jerry were like the same IP and just different product, and like Ben and Jerry were the names of the cat and the mouse,
Mm-hmm.
and not Tom. But that's a little mistake I made for a little while.
Well, it was because when you were young, you found some mouse bones in Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
And I proceeded to eat it anyways, thinking it was deliberate.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was gross, but I did it anyways. But yeah, you're right. I did.
But, you just can't replicate that mouthfeel, the texture.
I love the phrase mouthfeel. It's so specific.
We were watching Top Chef the other day.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, one of the judges was like, "This eats very well," describing the meal. She used eats as like I guess it's still a verb, but she said the food eats. Like, she said that the food eats, not the person eats the food, but she's this eats very well. She was using eats to describe it.
Yeah, it's a description instead of an action.
Yeah. I was like, this has gone too far. This is hell. This is hell.
It's like Boyle in Brooklyn Nine-Nine with, the mouthfeel of all the pizzas in New York. And he's just like, he's not even chewing. He's like moving it around with his tongue and then spitting it out. I love that shit. It's so funny.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. New York pizza is so good.
Yeah, I've only had it once in New York, and that was a long time ago.
When we went to New York last, we had pizza every day. We just walk, and if there's a good pizza place nearby on our little food map that we made, we'd be like, oh, we're near one. We should go and eat it, regardless of how hungry we are.
Mm-hmm. That's the only way to travel is food centric, I think. It's not about landmarks. It's not about museums. It's about restaurants and food.
Agreed.
And vendors. Agreed. I think food is like the greatest representation of a culture or an experience because it's so visceral and it's tasty.
Yeah.
I love food, man. Okay, well, I guess we should find some closing thoughts about these two films. Was Tom and Jerry better than you thought it was going to be?
No.
Okay.
It was exactly as bad as I was expecting it was going to be, yeah.
Okay, well, was Point Break better than you thought it would be?
Yes, it was way better than I thought it was going to be, actually.
Nice. Okay, good. I agree. Although I thought Tom and Jerry was better than I thought it was going to be, and Point Break was better than I thought it was going to be. So it's kind of like, maybe that's the last similarity, but you've just disproved that, so...
Yeah. I mean, it was, the Tom and Jerry one was exactly the cynical cash grab I was expecting, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And boy, how did it deliver, so. And it was impossible to stream for free, so we both paid for it.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, at least we could watch Point Break in an easy fashion, but I hate paying for bad movies. Yeah,
but it's what we chose to do for some reason.
Hell, whatever.
Life is hell.
Well, I mean, any other closing thoughts there, Mike?
Trying to get me to give some closing thoughts. The director of Tom and Jerry is also the animation director of the new Space Jam movie.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, which I haven't seen the trailer for, but you have.
The trailer just came out yesterday.
Oh, fresh.
And we talked about it a little bit off pod, but it's wild because they're basically just taking Space Jam and just adding so much Warner Brothers crap to it that it's no longer just about the Looney Tunes anymore. It's just about LeBron James playing basketball in space with all of Warner Brothers properties for some reason.
Including the Clockwork Orange Droogs.
Exactly. The Clockwork Orange Droogs are in it for some reason. And the Iron Giant is making his comeback after, I guess, being in the Ready Player One movie. So, and then the Flintstones are in it. It's just all of the properties that Warner Brothers owns. But when I was watching the Space Jam trailer, I forgot what the premise of the film was, the original one. So I was watching it and I was like, oh yeah, LeBron James is a basketball player. Space Jam is about a basketball game in space. I forgot that he plays with the Looney Tunes. So they turn him into a cartoon and then he plays basketball with the Looney Tunes. And it's like, oh yeah, Looney Tunes are in this movie.
It all came back.
It all came back and it was like, this is silly. This is really silly.
But you've already pre-ordered your ticket to see it, right?
No.
Sweet. That was a test and you passed.
But also it's interesting because Michael Jordan was in Space Jam.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole thing with licensing is he wouldn't license himself to properties that were affiliated with NBA. Everything was independent. So you never really saw like a basketball game that had like officially Michael Jordan in it back in the 90s.
Really?
There was, yeah. So he wasn't in NBA Jam, if I'm not mistaken.
Crazy.
You could play as Scottie Pippen, but you couldn't play as Michael Jordan.
That's nuts.
Yeah,
good for him, I guess.
Because he was so popular that he would license himself out separately. So for some reason, he wasn't in NBA Jam, but he was in Michael Jordan Chaos in the Windy City, the video game where it's like a platformer and you're Michael Jordan.
Wow, that's crazy. Good for him.
Which is actually kind of a good
amazing
game.
manager.
Maybe, yeah. But then that's why he was in Space Jam.
Right.
Because he would just license himself out to whatever he wanted that he thought would make a lot of money. And for some reason at the time, he was like, you know what's good? The Looney Tunes are still good.
But Space Jam did do well when it came out, didn't it?
Oh, of course it did, yeah.
It was a monster hit.
It was a Monstar hit.
I bow to you. That was great. That was great.
But anyway, it's interesting. The Space Jam new trailer came out in lieu of us watching this Tom and Jerry movie because it's like these old archaic properties from the 40s still living on. But just through this like just sewage pile of nostalgia that they like kind of have to exist in. So like Space Jam has to, I mean, everybody has positive affiliations with the Space Jam movie from the 90s, even as most people haven't seen it since they were a kid.
Well, everyone I talk to, it's only nostalgia that brings them the joy, because if you sit down and watch Space Jam, it's not good.
No.
But the nostalgia is so overpowering that people are compelled to watch it still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The memory of the thing is more pleasant than the thing itself. You know, it's kind of a bizarro thing.
Well, that was what was so surreal about watching the Tom and Jerry and the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie was these two things that you have nostalgic associations with, and then they just put them together.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like I was like watching fanfic, kind of, but like fanfic for which there's like an audience of no one. Yeah,
but also a weird budget, like big budget. Yeah, no, it is strange, isn't it? Yeah, the whole setup's kind of weird.
And then I guess that's what the new Space Jam movie is, and that's what Ready Player One is. Ready Player One is basically just like the worst fanfic. Or fanfic gone awry.
But fanfic that is very successful?
Well, yeah, I mean, fanfic is successful.
I guess. If you had to... Okay, let's end on this then, Mike. If you had to make fanfic right now, what would it be?
Oh, goodness.
I know it's a big question. It's a big question.
I mean... Okay, I was going to say Tom and Jerry, but no, it's like, no, I'm not. I got to think outside the box.
No, I want you to be real. Like, what would you genuinely put your heart into?
Tom and Jerry, A Clockwork Orange.
Oh, that'd be so fucked up. That'd be awesome,
Droogies, look, a little cat and a mouse.
Oh, nice. That'd be great. Animate Malcolm McDowell as a young man again.
How about Dexter's Laboratory?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Combined with Shrek, maybe?
I knew Shrek was in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I just was trying to think of the first two things I could think of, and for some reason that was the first two things I thought of.
Right.
But I wouldn't be surprised if that exists on the internet somewhere.
Oh, probably. So here's my fanfic, okay?
Okay.
So Patrick Swayze's character, Bodhi, starts paddling out on the Australian coast towards the greatest wave. He goes over the wave somehow, or like surfs his way out of the situation, and then there's a huge calm behind the wave. And then he gets picked up by George Clooney's boat from the perfect storm.
Nice.
Okay? And he proceeds to become a fisherman, and he's in international water, so he doesn't have to abide by law, and every time the boat docks, he stays on it. And he becomes like this legendary Seaman, okay? And then Aquaman, okay? Stay with me. Aquaman finds out about
leave.
him. Okay, well, it seemed like he did. Your eyes glazed over.
That's how they always look.
and drooled. Oh yeah, you're half lidded. I forgot.
Yeah, I'm a half-witted like Garfield. Never forget.
And then Aquaman finds out about him and says, "Wow, this guy's like a prolific criminal who's gotten away with it." And instead of hunting down Bodhi, Aquaman says, "You know what? You're all right. You and me are a lot alike." And then they become a skydiving duo. And they make a lot of money as these like skydiving daredevils.
Okay.
But they're also, get this, lovers. That's my fanfic.
Well, that's good. I feel bad for just saying Dexter's Laboratory plus Shrek. Maybe I'm going to change mine. Well, yeah.
I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Fraggle Rock meets Hannah Montana meets... How about Doctor Who, but like the 80s one?
Okay, cool. I like
sure,
that. Sure,
that's
that.
a thing.
That's
and
nice.
The Karate Kid. Throw the Karate Kid in there, but only Mr. Miyagi.
Right.
Because he has to teach them.
I got. You know what? So you know the beach where they do the football game?
I do, yeah.
In Point Break, guess what? Karate Kid 1, the soccer scene, the exact same beach.
Are you serious?
Yes, that's a famous filming location. And they do it's in a lot of movies, and Karate Kid and Point Break both used it for a sports scene. How cool is that?
Very cool.
Isn't that nice? Maybe we should end on that because that really brings it full circle.
We'll end it on a nice little fun fact.
Yeah. I'm really happy the way this really ended for us.
It ended for us for sure. You can say it definitely ended. Or it will
after
end.
This episode, no one is listening to our podcast ever again.
This was probably one of our most like existential episodes, maybe, where we're just questioning our own path in life.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening, and hopefully you got through this episode. I honestly don't know if you did. But if you're hearing my voice now, I commend you for your honorable listening. You just sat through this.
I mean, it seems like we were very critical of nostalgia mashups.
Yeah.
But in a sense, are we not just doing the same thing with our podcast? We're just kind of giving ourselves an excuse to talk about two separate things and trying to figure out how we can mash them together.
There's a profound fallacy in podcasting in that it's like often a medium in which you can be hypercritical of something, but you're also an integral part of the thing that you're critical of.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're part of the problem. Exactly. Yeah. We're eating lots of cake.
I could go for some cake right now.
Yeah, we're part of the problem. That's good.
We're part of the problem.
We got to the bottom of it.
And all of the canines are part of the problem for listening as well.
Exactly. Shame on you. Bad dog.
Bad dog.
We're all bad dogs. Okay, we should end this now.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for listening. Come back next week
for another riveting episode of From Justin to Kane.
Bye.